Today we're here with Cambium, and we're here with Sakid. And what's your role at Cambium, sir?
Yeah. Hey, Jeff. So good afternoon. Thank you. Sakid Ahmed. I'm a vice president and general manager for specifically the ePMP business, but getting my fingers dirty in some other areas lately. So I think we want to talk about that today a little bit. But yeah, engineering side, product side, marketing. I do a little bit of everything.
So today we're going to talk about quality of experience, and you guys are releasing a product now called QoE, or quality of experience, correct?
Right.
And I was looking at this, and at first I was scratching my head, so I want to know, what exactly is QoE?
So QoE, obviously, Jeff, stands for quality of experience, right? But what is it, right? Let's kind of walk through the genesis of it. It's not a new term. That's first and foremost. It really represents the experience of users at home. If you think about us, whether it's us or you guys as a distribution, we're in the business of selling products that enable broadband service, whether it's Wi-Fi, switches, access points, right? Very rarely do we think about the content that's being delivered. How well is that content working, right? What is the perception of the end user? If you think about the modern home, of all the things that we have running, from Google Fi to Amazon to Nest thermostats to Ring doorbells, let alone the web conferencing and the applications we're running, as a service provider, whether you're a WISP or a MSP, it doesn't matter. How much emphasis are you giving to the end user's perception of the application they're running? So it has everything to do with choppiness in your voice audio, to Netflix buffering, to high latency in an online gaming server. What can you do besides just going for higher bandwidth, going for larger channel sizes, going for fiber? What is it that can you do to change that experience? Because that is the essence of QoE, and that matters more so than today than ever before, because we are shifted now quite a bit more to that home user running home office to gaming to Netflix. Everything is sitting together on that pipe. So can you improve that experience? What can you do about it? That's where Cambium is. And I'll take just 30 seconds more, Jeff. But if you think about Cambium, traditionally we've been talking about the radio side of the house, right? We are the guys that preach about multi-user MIMO, massive MIMO. How can we get more data through the pipe? This is another angle to that. Okay, we're good at getting data, but can we do more with that? So that's kind of the essence of QoE.
So really, when you think about layman's terms, we talked to a lot of WISPs today, and they're like, I got a ton of gamers. We got people working from home now doing video conferencing like we're doing today. And
Right.
and we're already creating those pipes to the homes, but now it's basically like creating a better pipe without actually doing more. We're actually breaking into it and just making a better experience for the end user without changing the hardware.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it, right? So you put one of our appliances in the NOC, you pipe all your traffic through that. So it's a combination of things like a DPI engine, a deep packet inspection engine that goes and says, I'll give you a use case, for example. Let's say through our DPI engine, you're looking at 3 days of history of all the data that's going through the pipe, your network, and you say, holy cow, on a weekday, for some bizarre reason, between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m., there's a lot of BitTorrent traffic. Few users are eating up a lot of bandwidth. You don't know that data today, right? You just know that somebody's using a lot of bandwidth. You don't know what it is. Now you can go and say, all right, fine, there's a lot of BitTorrent being consumed. I am going to create a shaping rule and squeeze that BitTorrent down to, I don't know, 5 megabits per second. So all of a sudden, you took out one of your biggest offenders that is using up data for BitTorrent, and by choking it, you're going to allow the Netflix users and the gaming users to have better experience, right? So shaping based on applications, and you can do this for BitTorrent to everything else. So if you take an example of Apple TV, I think just got the NFL Sunday ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Flip the story on that. Sunday night, your users are going to watch NFL. What do you want to do? Do you want BitTorrent to eat that bandwidth? No. Give a nice solid pipe for Apple TV, because you can detect Apple TV, open up that pipe, squeeze everything else. Do it on a time based. Come Monday morning, that rule expires and a regular rule comes in. So that's just one aspect of QoE where you can do application visibility and then shaping in order to create a better quality of experience.
So speaking of the QoE, so what features can you do with this device? I mean,
Okay.
obviously we talked about rate limiting, right? But what other features are available in this
QoE.
QoE?
Sure. So I'll list them one by one. So first and foremost is what we call a TCP optimization feature. It's a proprietary TCP proxy. What that's doing is when the QoE box is sitting in line, it is responding on behalf of the TCP server client with acknowledgments. What we can say confidently is whether you're running a fixed wireless network or a fiber network with a bunch of Wi-Fi at the end or an MSP doing a senior citizen home, you do have interference. Wi-Fi will have problems and packets will take time to deliver. And TCP, which is the dominant protocol these days, is by nature will look for problems and then try to correct itself by backing off and cutting the throughput and all of that. So our job is to sit in the middle and let the TCP server think that everything is great. We're making acknowledgments on behalf and saying, hey, I got the packet. Don't worry, keep sending data. Don't throttle back. So by doing this TCP proxy, you are going to increase the bandwidth of your network and get the applications not to start buffering and slow down. So that I would call one of the most anchor feature and the most differentiated features. You don't have to do anything. You simply turn on a button, say, hey, TCP optimize. So if you're a WISP and you got a tower with a bunch of radios where you're like, man, I get a lot of customer support calls. There's a lot of interference. I'm just constantly looking for channels. Put a QoE box, turn on TCP optimization, and let it do the magic on its own. You don't have to do anything. So that's one feature. Then, as I talked about it, you got your very granular application shaping. So being able to see what's traversing the network and being able to create rules that says, hey, I want to squeeze BitTorrent, I want to squeeze Netflix, I want to squeeze YouTube, Hulu, you name it. Hundreds and hundreds of DPI signatures, right? We had a customer the other day wanted Tubi and Peacock as a signature and DirecTV Stream. We added that within 7 days, the request. So basically able to do that. Rate limit by itself is slightly an interesting thing. So you got traffic shaping based on application, but rate limiting becomes where you got an SLA of 50 meg down, 5 meg up. Well, there are companies that do rate limiting, right? You can also do rate limiting at the AP and the SM, but there is a very harsh packet drop mechanism. You get to the 51 meg, boom, packets are getting dropped at the end. In our case, what we do is we have multiple queues inside the rate limit pipe. Each queue can be associated to a particular traffic type. So Netflix has its own queue, Zoom has its own queue. So when you reach the max capacity of that pipe, i.e. the rate limit, you can start dropping packets on the different queues as opposed to one only queue. So now you're balancing the user's experience while dropping packets, so it's not as harsh of a situation. While we're talking about rate limiting, we just added another feature that came out in a release today, which is the ability to detect speed tests, right? So now what happens is if Jeff has a 50 meg downlink plan in your household, or your kids, your wife, they're eating up 30 megs of that data. Jeff says, I'm going to check. I'm paying this ISP $99 a month. I'm going to hit speed test to see if I'm getting my 50 meg. Now, when you hit speed test, the QoE appliance will detect that Jeff just initiated speed test. It will keep all those applications in your household running with the necessary bandwidth, but give you a bursting. So all of a sudden, you are going to see the full 50 meg as a result of your speed test. So you're not going to call your ISP and complain you're not getting your 50 meg. So that's part of a feature, right? It makes a lot of sense because everybody complains about the speed test part. So that's rate limiting. You got your granular traffic shaping. You got your TCP optimization. You got a ton of stats, all right? Full transparency. In this space, you got companies like Preseam, great company, did a lot of good work for our WISP industry. You got Procera, big boys in the network, and you got a few other players. We are one of those companies. Our differentiation is, unlike a pure QoE company, we are both a QoE company and a Cambium hardware company. So if you use Cambium, we're going to do some integration where we can do things like multi-user MIMO gain enhancement, understanding AP thresholds, and having QoE do things automatically. But the good news is if you're not Cambium, it doesn't matter. You can put a QoE box and use it anywhere you want. Wired networks with Wi-Fi at the end, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one big advantage. The last piece, along with the visibility, you can do charts of subscribers with the highest latency. Again, one feature just came out today that was exciting is application latency. So now you can see a graph and a table that says your Netflix is latency of X, YouTube is a latency of Y. So you start to see how applications are behaving on your network. Invaluable feature for troubleshooting, seeing health of the network. And of course, you can do all sorts of metrics for subscriber. The last piece out of all of this is the DOS, denial of service detection. So while it's QoE, there's an added security feature which says I can now detect when a DOS attack is happening and then provide the list of participating IP addresses. So you can at least see what IPs are violating or causing the DOS attack. I know I spoke for a long time there, Jeff, but in reality, it's a really solid set of features. I wanted to make sure they get all come across.
No, that's exactly what we need, is to make sure our viewers get to learn about these applications and what these tools do, right. And that's perfect. So that's spot on. So let's talk about this. So this is a hardware and a subscription base, correct?
Correct.
So where would does the hardware, is it going to sit at the tower site or would it sit at your NOC?
You have both options.
Okay.
So let me elaborate on the hardware side a little bit, as well as the deployment model. So first and foremost, we don't charge per subscriber subscription. It's more of a speed-based subscription. So you buy a gigabit worth of license that says you have an appliance that will traffic shape, optimize, DPI, rate limit up to a gigabit of throughput. And we'll go all the way from 1 to 100 gig solution. No ifs and buts about it, right? So it's very scalable. We sell a 1 gig solution that we look at as a potential tower model. And one might ask, why are you doing a tower model? Well, the interesting thing is we are coming across WISPs who are saying, look, I don't want to put everything through my NOC. I want to solve some of the problems at a particular tower, low footprint. I don't want to spend a ton of money. It's not a lot of traffic, but it's a problematic tower with 500 users. I want to invest at the tower location. Plus, they have a segregated network, and the upstream provider, you have 5 towers that get fed by one and another 10 towers by something else. So that's why the tower model helps. In parallel, you have the NOC model, and there you go from 1 gig all the way to 100 gig. In that model, we're also recommending that, look, I'll give you the hardware specs. You buy your own hardware. You may even have something, or you can do a virtualized solution. Because there's no point in Cambium going and buying a Dell server and charging a premium on top of it. If you want to buy a Dell from Dell, buy it, meet the hardware requirements. We'll give you the license and the software, you go to town. So that's how the model is. And yes, there is a subscription. It's essentially invoiced quarterly. It goes from as little as $200 or $270 a month for a 1 gig to, a couple of $1,000s or more as you go higher up. The point I'll make is that because it's a throughput-based solution, the larger your network is, the more subscribers you have. As long as you're below the throughput cap, we don't care. You can keep adding more subscribers, and the economics will work out for you in a great way.
That's great information. So now earlier you had mentioned something, you were talking about Wi-Fi. I mean, we talk about WISPs all the time, but then so would this be something that could assist MSPs also?
Bingo. Absolutely, Jeff. Absolutely. And I think we should spend a few minutes on this, right? So in the world of Wi-Fi, and you are obviously, you guys are much closer to this, but you have solutions from the likes of Cisco and all of that with Riverbed, Steelhead, or something like that, right? WAN optimizer, application visibility, tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Yes, a Marriott can go and afford that, or big stadiums and things like that. But for everybody beyond that scale, right? If you're an MSP doing maybe an MDU, maybe a small hospitality venue, you want to do things like traffic shaping, you want to create rate limit packages, and you want to optimize the protocol layer, right? The TCP optimization. Anybody offering any type of broadband service can put this in and benefit from it. And MSPs are absolutely a right candidate because it gives them a much lower entry point from an investment perspective to go deploy, get the user statistics, and give that quality of experience. Because Wi-Fi matters, because everybody comes in, you got devices that are old, new, old protocol 2.4, congestion, interference. I don't even have to go any further, but you know this very well, Jeff, right? So yes, it does apply, and it's a very nice sweet spot.
And now, can you upgrade that service as you go? Meaning, like, if I hit the threshold today and tomorrow I need to double it,
yes, absolutely. And the recommendation I would have is, like, if you are a 5 gig customer
Mhm.
buy the 10 gig hardware, because you're
Mhm.
not going to pay that much more to go to a 10 gig hardware, a higher SSD, a bit more memory, and a few more ports.
Mhm.
Buy the 10 gig hardware so that you buy the 5 gig license. You ever need to upgrade, you just buy the software license.
Where do you see this going? I mean, are there plans in the roadmap to enhance this more over the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
year,
absolutely,
years?
absolutely. Absolutely. So the feature roadmap is quite exciting. So I'll give you some insight. One thing that we now can bring to the table is you have your QoE box that's giving you things like application latency, Netflix latency, and YouTube latency.
Uh-huh.
We get a ton of information on RSSI, SNR, frame utilization, packet errors, all of this, and even some things that our customers don't see that we can get through CLI access under the hood.
Mhm.
Now, envision that I'm going to take all this application layer data, raw radio data, connect those together, and present a very compelling heat map or a health history of the overall network.
Mhm.
So that type of statistics and visibility becomes a huge roadmap deliverable from us. So that's one. On the QE side itself, I just talked about the speed test stuff, but the next thing we're going to do is the time-based rules, right? You can apply rules at certain times of the day.
Okay.
Then there is a congestion detection and avoidance mechanism. So if through artificial intelligence, machine learning, you're going to watch the TCP congestion. Like, is this really a congestion issue? Oh, it is? All right, then I can automatically apply some rules.
Mhm.
So think automation. Think that the appliance starts taking care of the network on your behalf so you don't have to do much. That's sort of the vision we're going to drive to. So there'll be a lot of features along the way.
So I'm looking forward to this. Actually, I'm already thinking in my head of some of the people that I'd love to set up calls, and
Yeah.
we can teach them about this and hopefully
The
help
best
them.
part, Jeff, is trials, right?
Yep.
Because it's software based, try and buy is super easy, right? You got a server, we'll tell you, or we'll ship you one, put the software, run for 45 days, see the
Mhm.
results for yourselves, and then you decide, right? So that's the beauty of it. So I want to leave that open so as you think about it, trials and stuff.
No, it's perfect. So now, earlier you and I were talking. Now there is a feature that you guys are getting ready to release for ePMP. It doesn't do everything that QoE does, but it is a feature that's going to be able to be purchased for ePMP. Can you
Correct.
go into that a little bit?
Absolutely, Jeff. So we call this feature Smart QoS. Call it lack of creativity. We couldn't come up with anything better. But um, the gist of it is that an ePMP 11AC series of products, you are now with the 4.7 release, which is on our website, you can enable a DPI engine. And you can do that for free. Basically, you can download 4.7, upgrade all your APs and SMs, and you can right away start seeing what applications are going through your AP and SMs. It puts a nice little graph showing the high consumptions and all of that. Where we sell a license is to be able to take that application and map it to QoS, not QoE, but quality of service. We all know that ePMP APs, or there are 450 APs, Wi-Fi APs, a lot of times have these schedulers that say, hey, high priority, medium priority, low priority, right? VoIP priority is something we do in ePMP. Now, this DPI engine, you can go and say, hey, look, bunch of web conferencing apps that I just detected. I'm going to bundle them together, and I want you, Mr. AP, to put them in the highest priority queue.
Mhm.
Or I've got some gaming customers behind this particular SM. On that SM, I'm going to make gaming a higher priority in the uplink. Because uplink is where things a lot of times matter, because that's where the bandwidth's limited. So this is what you can do. And this, I think what ends up doing is we did some tests inside the lab where we had high interference in an environment, and we prioritized the Zoom call, and we saw better performance of the Zoom call with Smart QoS on and versus off. Very attractive pricing. It's like $10 a month, $120 per AP. You buy it for a couple of years, let it run. Naturally, we know wireless will go through different cycles. We'll have it again available on E4000, for example. Same feature with AX and all that. So exciting feature. I think it's going to make a big difference for a lot of customers out there.
No, that is exciting. I think that being able to actually see what's going on inside those pipes is just
Correct.
a eye opener to where we can solve problems and find problems and make our networks run smarter
Correct.
and faster.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's great
Exactly.
information. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us on this stuff today.
Absolutely, Jeff. My pleasure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.